Hi all. So we are going to look at patterns, creating patterns and modifying patterns, and then changing the scale of patterns. So a couple of different things here. So let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make a rounded rectangle shape here. And I have a bunch of windows open, so I'm going to go ahead and close all those. And also just a reminder that if your windows are ever getting out of control or things are weird or you just don't know, like how it's looking, you can always go to workspace and then reset your essentials, which is going to set everything back to baseline and clear all that up for you. It just gets you back to properties, layers, and libraries, which is pretty simple. All right, so here I've got my rounded rectangle shape, and I want to go ahead and add a pattern to that. So because I just reset everything, by the way, you can obviously save your own custom workspaces as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get my swatches. Panel up here, and I do have some patterns up here already, but I'm going to go ahead and go to patterns, and let's go ahead and do some, let me look at the textures really quick. I'm not too sure about any of these. Well, that one's kind of nice, I guess. Hatching. Yeah, so let's take a look at hatching. So let's say I've got this pattern here and it's really cool, I think, but I do want to go ahead and edit it a little bit. Let's say I want it to look a little bit more like sprinkled candy. What I'm going to do is you can edit any of these patterns at any time. So I'm going to come over to my hatching pattern that's been added to my swatch panel since I selected that, and I'm going to go ahead and double click it. It's going to take me into the pattern itself, and it's going to allow me to do some editing here. So I'm going to zoom in, and these are the shapes that the pattern is based off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to shift select a whole bunch of these real random like, and I'm going to go through and add a different color stroke to these confetti sort of pieces. It looks like confetti to me. So I'm going to go over to my properties panel, which I'm just going to rip off so that it's a little bit more accessible there and not just stuck over in the corner. And I'm going to change the color of the stroke of these to, let's say, pink. And I also want to make them a little thicker. And then let's say I want to make them rounded too. I'm going to click on my stroke option here, and I'm going to say that the caps should be rounded. Cool, right? So then I'm going to go and I'm going to select, I'm just shift selecting here, a number of these. Let's say that many, or this many. There's actually a lot of shapes in this pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to choose a different color, and this time I'm going to pick blue, and I'm going to go ahead and make that a much thicker stroke as well. This time I'm going to choose a profile stroke to make little teardrops. So there we go, or raindrop kind of shape, I suppose. Yeah, rounding the caps doesn't do anything for me there. Okay, cool. So now I have these little shapes in my pattern. So you can see how you can really create kind of an array of things just by playing around with the stroke. Profile, thickness, color. And my pattern's probably not going to be perfectly balanced because I'm just kind of randomly selecting these. So let's say this one I want to be purple, and I'm going to make that bigger. And let's say these ones I just want to be squares. Okay, so let's say I'm done editing this now and I have a much more fun pattern than I had before. It's altered and changed. I'm gonna go ahead and come up here to the top window. I'm just gonna click done. And it says this pattern contains active content that must be expanded in order to create a swatch. So what that means is it's going to expand the objects here in the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And so what that means is if I go back in here and edit, oh, it didn't expand them. Well, I'm not really sure. I'm just going to hit done. I've never actually seen that warning before, but hey, there's always room for new things, especially when you're recording a tutorial, right? Why not have some surprises pop up? Okay, cool. So now I kind of have this cool pattern going on and I kind of like that. I'm going to make this a little smaller and I'm just going to, not too small. I mean, that is a cool pattern. I'm just going to go put this up here in the corner. So yeah, so what about making your own pattern? You can make patterns however you like. I tend to like to kind of make mine off to the side. But I'm not really sure why I do that. I think it's just because when I'm previewing the pattern, I can see it a lot better over here. So I think what I'm going to do, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to kind of make some shapes. So why don't I get my star tool going? I'm going to make some stars. I don't necessarily want them to be filled with that. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and fill it with green. And then I'm going to take the stroke off of there. Maybe I'll do multicolored stars. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. So I'm just going to get a couple of things going. Now you can do quite a bit of editing of your pattern once you get it in there. And yeah, so I'm just going to kind of randomize these a little bit more. Now, there are ways to duplicate things several times and make them real random. Maybe that's something we can cover later on in the term. And I'm just going to, I'm just going to make these different color, make sure that I have fill in front over here. I'm going to go pink, orange, yellow, purple, and blue, of course. Okay, so what I can do is I can just select all these, and I think these might be a little bit big. I'm actually going to make them a little smaller of an area. And then all I need to do is go to Object, Pattern, Make. And so what it's going to do is going to give you a preview of that pattern. And it's just telling me that a new pattern's been added to the swatches panel, so you can see it right there. And then you're going to see your 5 core objects that you started working with. And so what I can do is I can zoom in and I can come in and really kind of edit these and do different things. So let's first look at our pattern options panel, which is right here. Now I have a few different ways that my pattern can go. It can go as a grid, it can go brick by row, or hex by column, or hex by row. I tend to prefer to want to work with the hexagon if I'm dealing with complex shapes. If I'm dealing with more simple shapes, the grid is just fine. But let me go ahead and go to the hexagon, because sometimes the hexagon can be problematic. You see how these stars are on top of each other? Whether this is a hex or if it's just a grid, you can always adjust this little blue line, which is sort of the corral in which your pattern assets sort of live in. So if you come up to this button, Pattern Tile Tool, and you click it, you're going to see that this wire form shows up. And oftentimes when you're using the hex, things are too close together. So I'm just going to scoot those out just like that. Now, when you're inside editing a pattern, it's important to be able to make edits to it. And you can obviously like move stuff around, but you can also just do just about anything you could do in regular mode. So I'm going to say, like, let's say I want to have another yellow star, but it's a little bit smaller. I can just duplicate that and drag and drop, Same thing with this pink one. Let's say I want to have a small pink one here. And, you know, I want some variation of scale in my pattern. I can also change the properties. So if I go to appearance, I can change this one to say, let's say I want to change it to, oh, that gradient doesn't look very good. How about this blue gradient? Or if I want to put a pattern inside of a pattern, which actually that pattern looks horrible. Let's try one of these textures I had going on earlier. Nope, they're all too big. Maybe I should just stick to a fill for this one. I will. Okay, how about red? I can, you know, flip the stroke and the fill on this if I want, and make any of those kinds of normal edits. I believe that you can, let me get my graphic style window up. I believe you can apply graphic styles also to your objects within a pattern. There you go. Of course, my graphic style is not showing it very well because this is very small and the pattern I have in there are dots. But I'm going to show you how to change the scale of a pattern here shortly. So anyways, I've made all these edits to my pattern and now I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit done. And I'm just going to hit OK. And now I have my pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and just create another rectangle here. I'm going to go ahead and apply that pattern. And there it is. Fantastic. So that's a really easy way to make your own patterns, edit them in real time. So there's also some other things. Oops, it looks like when I reset Essentials, I don't have all my tools available here. So if that ever happens to you, you can go to Edit, Toolbar, this flyout menu up here, and hit Advanced. And that's going to give you your full set of tools again. So let's say that this, this pattern needs to be a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. You want to adjust the scale of it. So there's two different things you can do. You can adjust the scale of a pattern and you can also adjust the position of a pattern. So I am with this object selected. I'm going to go to, actually, let's do the scale tool first. So with the object selected, if you double click on the scale tool, one thing that you need to do is it's going to always have transform objects and transform patterns both checked. You're going to uncheck transform objects. And then let's say that I put this at 50% instead. I'm going to hit OK, and you're going to see that it makes that pattern quite a bit smaller. So that's how you can make a pattern smaller. Now let's say I need to adjust this pattern, and let's say I want this star with the graphic style applied to it to kind of move all the way to the left side. So I am going to go to Object, Transform, Move. And what you can do is you can actually, you want to just make sure you have transform pattern selected, not transform objects. And what you can do is you can just arrow down or arrow up, and it'll kind of adjust that pattern over time. And it will move it for you. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So that is how you can make a pattern, move it around, and everything is happy. All right. So let's see. I think that's all I have. Modify patterns, create patterns. Perfect. So next, we are going to look a little bit more in depth to graphic styles. So we will cover that in the next video. Okay, bye.